Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome back into the Dynasty Gambit, part of the Going for Two live network. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Just a quick reminder, if you are on Twitter, we cannot see your comments or your questions. Head over to the Going for Two YouTube channel. Interact with us there. Tonight, I am your host, Jay. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyJ77. And with me, as always, my co-host, Kyle Sinra at Sinra Says, Brian at VandyGrad92 over there on Twitter. Fellas, welcome back. It's been 2 weeks since we've been live. Brian, how are you doing, baby?
I'm doing much better. I was honestly just jamming out to the music, so I'm now upbeat and ready to go.
Kyle, great to see you as well. How are you tonight, sir?
If Dan's watching, he's going to be so upset because we got that music. But hey, the Gambit paid off, right?
Well, you know, it's funny because I had Dan on my show last night, and that was the first comment he brought up was like, holy crap, you got intro music? How did you do that? So, hey, Jeff, he's talking about you on other shows as well. Hey, but last but not least.
Hey, share going for two, right? Always going for two, and we stuck with the going for two family for our guest. And I'll stop interrupting.
Most importantly, our guest tonight, a true friend to the show, only because Jeff makes him, but he's still a friend nonetheless. Mr. Brian Ford at FF_Junkie_ over there on Twitter, host of the Saturday Night 5 on Going for Two Network. Brian, I think this is the second time we've had you on the Gambit already this year. So thank you, first of all, and welcome back. How are you?
Doing really good. Two corrections. I am not the most important, and I am not a friend because Jeff makes me. So just
okay. So you're not the most important, except you are tonight. And so what you're saying is you are a friend of the show, no matter what Jeff says.
Yeah, Jeff's not my dad. He can't tell me what to do.
He might be your real dad. You don't know. It's possible. Guys, tonight we're gonna go and we're gonna mock it up tonight with a rookie mock. But before we dive in, I want to give you, I guess, a quick overview for the listeners, for the viewers, just so you know how we set this mock up. 12-team Superflex, no tight end premium. Thanks to Vandy Grad. He doesn't like the tight end premium, this guy. So what we're going to do,
Brian Ford that.
I mean, I know, Brian. Hey, well, you got to blame the other
tables. I'm flipping tables over here.
Well, you should. I wanted a tight end premium too, but I got outruled because I said it had to be a 12-team and he wanted a 5-team. It didn't make sense. So anyway, we're going to do a 12-team, no tight end premium, super flex. The four of us will have picks. We'll pick 3 in each round. As the picks are made, I'll set them on the board. I gave Brian Ford, because he's the guest, I gave him the choice of the first pick, or of what he wanted to pick, whether 1 through 4. And he chose pick 2, which was quite interesting to me. So, of course, you know, I made it easy for myself, and I took the 101. So the draft's going to look like this. I'm going to take the 101, 105, 109. Brian Ford, you're going to take the 102, 106, 110. Kyle, you're going to go 103, 107, 111. And Vandy Grad, you're going to do 104, 108, 112 to try to make this easy. I had to split the Brian's up for me just so I could, you know, differentiate which Brian I'm talking to.
Well, apparently it's 4 friendly faces. At least that's what Jamie says. And to be fair, Jamie is a friendly face himself. So
I don't know. Have you seen Jamie's face? I don't know. He might be friendly.
Hey, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So I've got you, Jamie. I'm on Jamie's side on a lot of things. Like I do support Jacoby Brissett as well. So that's good there.
Golly, here we go with the freaking Cleveland Browns. I knew you were going to bring it up tonight.
I support Jacoby Brissett because of his time with the Colts, and I thought they actually kind of messed up trading a bunch of draft picks for quarterbacks like Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz when they could have potentially just had Jacoby Brissett the whole time and gotten probably just as far. Shane Manila's here. Another Kyle, probably a better Kyle than Kyle Senra, but Kyle Keish saying, "Hey fellas." So,
well, Kyle, you ready to kick this draft off? I have the 101, and I mean it's a super easy choice for me, right? So it's Bijan Robinson any day of the week. I don't think it matters what format. But I do have a question, real quick. You have the 101. What is it going to take for you? You know, if I wanted to trade back, what would you want in return for the 101 at this point?
Well, I'm in a league with a couple of you, and I traded Dalton Schultz in the 105 to get the 101 and Noah Fant. So, I mean, it would take more than that, obviously, for me. That's the only 101 share I have. So, the only league where I could contextualize like what I would want for it. I felt that was pretty cheap. Like, I'd imagine 2 firsts is kind of likely with, one of them being at least as high as the 105. Could stomach like a 104 and I don't know, a 104 and a 108. Maybe get the RB2 there in the class at 108, right, Brian?
You know it.
Yeah. So it's pretty easy pick for me. It's Bijan Robinson. I don't think there's, like I said, any format that you're not taking Bijan here. Brian Ford, you are on the clock. Where are you going here in a super?
So I was gonna actually ask for some feedback on the trade. Apparently Shane says that's theft, and Shane's on not just the Dynasty Trades HQ. He's in Dynasty Trades in 5. I know I've made a lot of trades with him. He's made a lot more, so he knows trades. So yeah, I was gonna ask, like that's probably still on the low end. So I guess we can elaborate on that further, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Bijan himself is going to be worth 3 firsts, if not now. By the time we see him in pads, running in camp and things like that. So, if I'm trading the 101, I want the equivalent of 3 first value. And otherwise, I'll just draft Bijan and trade him for just about 3 firsts anyway later on.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. All right, where are you going with the 102 here?
Yeah, I purposely chose 102 to take the QB1 of the rookie class as far as fantasy goes, and that's Anthony Richardson.
Whoa!
Yeah. So I kind of I'm on record in several different places. You can find the opinion. You can find a 40-minute version of the opinion on the Dynasty Fever YouTube channel where I made a video about it. There's a clip from Dynasty Saturday Night 5 where I talk about it, posted on the Going for Two live YouTube channel. I've written about it here and there, and so I'll spare you the long explanation, but here's the thing, right? You're gonna have, at least what it looks like now, is 3 quarterbacks with real life first round draft capital, real life high first round draft capital. One of which is an elite rusher. And he therefore only has to make mild improvements in passing to be very fantasy relevant and hit for us. And all 3 of them, being that they're all, drafted close together, we think, will have, similar value retention, value insulation as first round young stud quarterbacks moving forward. So if I have 3 assets that are relatively in the same ballpark, give me the one that has the elite ceiling and that can have be an elite rusher. And in fact, the phrase I've been using is that his ceiling is the floor. The idea that his ceiling is so high makes him such a safe pick and makes him retain that value even when he'll struggle a little bit or sit for a few games and things like that. And so, ARQB1, hashtag ARQB1 all day, every day. And BT Dubs, not that he needs me to pump him up at all, but Matt Wallman's RSP just dropped. Who's his QB1?
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson.
I was going to say Hendon Hooker, but okay. And it is.
Jesus. Kyle, you are on the board at the 3 pick. Where are you going here and why?
It's funny because I just heard this. Scott Connor was talking about this, I think, on the GOAT District, how this quarterback class does kind of resemble the 2021 QB class. And is Anthony Richardson kind of like Trey Lance? And just to add on to Brian's point at the end, Trey Lance sat his entire rookie year. It wasn't just a few games, like the entire rookie season, and he still didn't lose value until Brock Purdy showed up. Like, that was the thing. You had this other young quarterback that wasn't leaving imminently that suddenly looked better. That was the one thing that's kind of dipped Trey Lance's value.
And I don't mean to extend this any longer and belabor the point, but half the Dynasty community is ready to bury Trey Lance, before the little video came out today, and he's still a 4th or 5th round pick in startups.
Yeah, still viewed as a top 15 QB going in startups, probably.
Well, yeah, his ADP right now per DLF is QB 13, if I'm not mistaken, and it is right at the end of the 6th round. I was talking about this the other day with Shane and everybody. But yeah, so you've got a QB, but there's the issue is what have we seen from him on the NFL stage? What have we seen from him on the college stage? That's the same question we have with Anthony Richardson. And I have that question even as a Gator fan. I've watched every single game that he has played in college, right? So there's still a lot of questions for me in my mind with the Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance conversation.
It's funny because my QB rankings are Stroud 1, Young 2, Richardson 3. So I am going to go CJ Stroud here, but it's funny that almost does seem like that's the order they're going to go in the NFL draft. At least a lot of mocks have had Stroud going, like that's the guy the Panthers have traded up for is CJ Stroud. The Texans will get Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson to the Colts. Seems like it's a very heavily mocked landing spot. Personally, between those three, the Colts probably gets the edge as the landing spot because of Michael Pittman. Because I don't think the Texans or the Panthers right now or this year will be able to get a receiver as good as Michael Pittman. So Anthony Richardson, in theory, has the best weapon. And we've seen, he's going to be starting off at a higher level than where like Justin Fields was this year based on like, Darnell Mooney is my number one guy.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to disagree with you on is they do have an opportunity to get that wide receiver one and that, at that 11
early
pick
second,
with,
right?
No, Houston has the 11 pick.
Oh, Houston, right? Yeah. I was thinking Carolina.
Okay,
yeah,
well, you
right.
said Houston, and that's why I was like, you
12th pick, I think. Yeah, you're right.
11th or 12th pick, and there is a wide receiver sitting there named JSN that is probably the perfect fit, and that's why I love the idea of for the Texans anyway. If for some reason Carolina goes Bryce Young or they go Anthony Richardson, that leaves a prime opportunity. We've seen this with the NFL. Get a quarterback, pair him up with his college wide receiver, and off to the races they go. Right? So you got CJ Stroud at 2 going to the Texans. At 11 or 12, you've got JSN going, to Houston as well. You just paired the quarterback with his wide receiver for the last 3 years. 2 years because he was out for the year. But anyway, so you pair them up, and that just immediate chemistry between there. Brian Vandegrad, you are on the clock at 104. Where are you going right now? I think I have a feeling I know, which is going to make me love my next pick as well.
I could go completely off the board, but to me, when I found out I was the 4th pick, I was like, well, gosh, that does me no favors. But honestly speaking, y'all left me open, so I'll just take Bryce Young. So I'm okay with that pick. I had no real decision to make.
You don't fear his size does not hurt you or does not hurt your feelings.
Well, in Superflex, you have to go Bryce Young. I mean, let's be honest with you. Any of the top 3 quarterbacks go wind up being the best quarterback in the NFL, and I'm perfectly fine taking that pick at 104.
Yeah, this seems like a pretty standard top 4 in most rookie drafts. The order might change, but I would imagine these are the first 4 players going in almost every Superflex draft.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's going to be the top 6 are going to be there.
You see this? Sorry, Jay.
You're good.
Just Brian Ford, I know you do a lot of mock drafts, and I don't know if you've had any rookie drafts start yet, but you probably see it a ton, right? Where it's these same top 4.
I mean, the same 4 to 6 picks are pretty much picking themselves, and the draft starts at 7 in a lot of cases. But yeah, it's specific to these 4. Absolutely, and Richardson's climbing for people. Go watch the 40-minute video. There's a lot to it.
All right,
yeah.
Jake,
So I'm on the clock here at 5, and I got the running back one of the class at this point. It's I am not a huge Will Levis fan. I think he's gonna be picked in the first round, but the one guy that sits here at 5 for me is Jackson Smith-Njigba, and that is the wide receiver one of the class. Pairing the wide receiver one with the running back one of the class, I think that's a no-brainer. So, but again, I think we're right here with this top 5, coming up on this 6th pick. It's fixing to head to you, Brian, and I think these 6 are going to all be pretty standard in every single rookie draft. I guess maybe depending on format, maybe it changes a little bit, but I mean, you got these guys and you're up here at 6, so I want to know what you're going to do here. But I think this 6th pick is, like you said a minute ago, it's where the draft starts, right? You got this 6 pick, and then 7 is where the draft starts for you, where you really got to start thinking and preparing.
Yeah, so most folks are taking a running back here as the consensus RB2, and Kyle and I don't have him as consensus RB2. And I took a different running back here at 106 for the mock that we did with the Discord folks for Dynasty Saturday Night 5, just for the conversation piece, right? I'm not gonna do that here. I'm not gonna quote unquote reach for that running back, because if I'm in a draft, the guy I am gonna pick is probably gonna be valued higher than the guy I have at RB2. So I'm doing one of two things. I'm either picking this guy and trading him, or I'm trading back to get a couple picks to get the guy that Kyle and I like better. But for now, I'm gonna go with Jahmyr Gibbs. We're talking about elite receiving. We're talking about quickness. We're talking about probably underrated here or there when it comes to certain aspects of the running game. I don't think he's a lead back in the truest sense. I think he can be a 1A in the way that Tyjae Spears or Tony Pollard can be a 1A, where they get 18, 20 touches a game, but those touches are well thought out, that there's that there's pass catching, that they're in space, right? Not a lot of bruising runs between the tackles. If you're drafting Jahmyr Gibbs at 106 because you think he's a 3-down workhorse, I don't know that you're making the right decision. The real 3-down workhorse is the guy that Kyle and I have at RB2.
Yeah, I think the other thing that can never be overstated enough, and we all preach this, and we can say it 10 times every single day, 12 times on Sunday, but we're not drafting for need, right? We're drafting for value or whatnot. We will trade for need. Does anybody feel different when we say that, or is that pretty much standard?
I think especially in the first round or two, what you're looking at is I'm always pretty much best value available, best player available, trade later kind of thing. I think, later on in the draft, I might look at a positional need, or I might say, what's the biggest upside swing I can take, but that's essentially how I go about things. Yeah.
Right. All right, Kyle, you are on the clock here at 107. Where are you going?
So, Kyle Keish doesn't like Will Levis, but Kyle Senra will, in fact, go with the quarterback and take Will Levis just for what we're talking about, drafting for value. And, if he, as much as the first 3 quarterbacks seems like they're almost all locked in to be top 5 picks, seems like Will Levis is locked in as a first-round pick in mock drafts now. There were 3 quarterbacks last year that were supposed to be locked in first-rounders, all went to the 3rd round, so anything can happen. But I think just the value of what a quarterback could be. Mm-hmm. We've had mixed results on this quarterback's awful and we hate him as a community, right? We've looked awful as a community when we've faded Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, but we've also kind of faded Zach Wilson that actually looked to be pretty smart. Mm-hmm. Daniel Jones, that's kind of in the middle, right? So like you can have those are basically the 3 extremes in the middle tier of like what can happen with that quarterback that we hate. Do we think Will Levis is as good as Daniel Jones? I'm willing to bet he's at least close enough that I think it's worth it, because like at this point we're talking about Trey Lance as the QB 13. How far is Daniel Jones away from being the QB 13? I mean, Gator might pick up ADP for there, but yeah, I'll take Will Levis. Go with the value at the quarterback.
I'm gonna call shenanigans here, Kyle. I set you up for the pick that we all.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just taking the value because I think. I mean, you're going to take him next anyway.
I'm going to push back here and say in a lot of my leagues he wouldn't be the value, but I don't know. Like I think. Listen, I think the big caveat with all this at the beginning is a lot of this is going to shuffle up after the NFL draft, but I think Will Levis is so bad and so toxic. Like I am like he's almost in like a do not draft list for me. Like I don't even know if he's like a draft him because he's value and trade him guy, because I think he really is just falling. And 107 is probably the highest I've seen him go in a couple weeks. But, again, you do have a point. First round, we think quarterback in a super flex, there's some value retention there.
Yeah. So, quick question for you, Brian, or Kyle, either one of you. Quarterbacks drafted in the first round in the NFL draft, they hold their value even if they go to a bad team or they don't perform their first year. Does that change your mind?
Their first year in college, where apparently he couldn't start over Sean Clifford.
Well, he was. Yeah, I was going to say he was playing with Sean Clifford, and Sean Clifford was just better.
Yeah,
Sean
the comments
Clifford,
hate me right now. The
Sean
best
Clifford
comparison to Levis is EJ Manuel, according to Jamie. So yeah, everyone hates my pick. Lightning rod here, folks.
I'm just not a Levis fan. I'm not a fan of anybody that puts anything, such as
why are you doing
mayonnaise
like that,
coffee.
mixing it with coffee?
But that's beside the point.
Of course,
Brian,
more takes I can make that everyone will hate. So yeah, I can keep going. I'm saying things people will hate.
Vandegrad, you are on the clock here at 108. Where are you headed and why?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I wish I knew their running back as the RB. I guess we're looking at the RB3 because we're in a position in the draft right now that a lot of this is dependent to me on what your team needs are overall. I'm assuming you were in the startup. Most people have been in a startup league, and this will be like an extension to their team. So it kind of depends on what your team needs. Me personally, I'm going wide receiver with Quentin Johnston, but it's a position where you could really go a number of directions.
Yeah, the only thing that bothers me with Quentin is the spacing. It seems like he's more productive when he is crowded. And when he's open in an area, he is not as productive. Do you guys have, let's start with you, Kyle. Anything on Quentin Johnston that you don't like on this number 8 pick, or being wide receiver 2, or anything with Quentin Johnston's performance?
I know Wheeler loves QJ. He was calling the pick 2 weeks ago, but yeah, I honestly have all three of the top 3 receivers in a tier of their own. I've kind of come around to Jackson Smith and Jigba being the wide receiver 1, but he
finally.
Wait!
Stop a damn minute! Did you say finally? Are you? What are you watching?
A lot of running back tape.
I heard him with Foss on the other. What was that? The
Fantasy Pod. That's
yeah. It was talking about
just going through like Ryan's analysis and someone I really trust here at the Going for Two. Like you can get watch the Wednesday night show. You get Ryan Searfoss every week. You see, so actually, question to Wheelers is like QJ to Ayuk. Is that like just how we feel? Is that a good thing? Like if he got Ayuk's career so far through 3 seasons, we'd be happy with that, right?
I mean, I was a huge Ayuk fan coming, when he was coming out of college. The production, I just saw it's gonna be there. And I don't think that the production that I thought was going to come out of college with Ayuk has been there. Like he's not even a wide receiver 2 in most cases, right?
I mean, didn't he put up like 14 fantasy points as a rookie, like 14 points per game or something?
And he was on fire last year too, especially toward the end of the year.
He was on fire with Jimmy G.
I expect him to go up a little bit in value and production this year coming up as far as Ayuk goes. But QJ is a guy that is in my category of I'm out at cost. He's someone I'll draft where I need to draft him to trade him if I can't trade out to the person who wants QJ. But I'm out at cost. There's a really good ceiling there, but I don't know. I think there's mental stuff and effort stuff there. I think there's body catching there. I see him get bullied by, physical corners that he shouldn't be bullied by. And is he the type of guy who's going to hire a wide receivers guru to work with, on the side? Is he a guy who's going to put in hours on the jugs machine? I don't know. I don't know that he's that guy. And so I think there are times when you lean into ceiling and there are times when you lean into floor, and I'm not leaning into QJ. And if this was my draft, right, and it went this way, I'd be, hard nipples that Levis and QJ went at 7 and 8 because guys that I really want then would be falling to me.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I'm at here at 9. I'm getting a guy who I think I still have Gibbs as my running back too. But I really, really love this kid, Zach Charbonnet. And I think I'm getting him great value right here at 109. Coming out of UCLA, what he did at Michigan, transferring, I wish he would have. I think he would have been better coming out last year. He probably still would have been up there with Hall. Unfortunately, he's coming out this year. Pushes him to 3 because I think he probably could have been like the RB2 last year coming out. But I just love what I think he can truly be.
No.
I mean,
he's not ahead of Breece Hall. Let's be real.
No. I said RB2 last year.
Well, exactly. He's not ahead of Breece Hall. Breece Hall's not ahead of Ken Walker.
This smart ass with the Ken Walker.
Ken Walker's the RB1 in Dynasty until Bijan enters the league. Then
you're
Bijan.
right because I was a huge Ken Walker.
Don't start this.
I was Ken Walker RB1 last year as well.
More takes I could say that everyone hates. By the way, I just got to say, Ayuk had been a wide receiver 2 seasons out of his 3.
Okay.
He was the wide receiver 24 in points per game last year, wide receiver 15 in total points, PPR. And then he was the wide receiver 14 in points per game as a rookie, 15.4 points per game as a rookie. So quite impressive. Yeah. That's actually his best season so far was his rookie year. But to say, if we got Quentin Johnson's first 3 years as like Ayuk's production, I think we'd be pretty happy, to be fair. So while I don't know if Wheeler's meant to have that as an insult. Like I don't necessarily view that as an insult. And yes, so does everyone on this podcast have Charbonnet as the RB2? Like, it's like a unanimous decision.
You and I do. I don't know about anybody else.
I still have him at 3.
Okay.
But what I love about him is another, like Brian said earlier, true 3-down back workhorse. Like I think there's 2 in this class. One of them is Bijan. One of them, the other is Charbonnet. Gibbs, for me, just the explosion that he has. There are plays that he's going to produce that 11, 12-point play, right? It's going to take for me to have Charbonnet move up. It's going to take me to see that Charbonnet can have multiple plays that he can get that 12, 13 points per play in fantasy. If that makes any sense at all. I'm looking at it completely through a micro lens, not a micro.
Yeah, Charbonnet would need volume. If we assume he gets the role because he has the volume, that's what would allow him to get ahead of Gibbs. But Gibbs could do it could outproduce him on lesser touches if he was an efficient enough offense, had an efficient enough role. So we don't necessarily need Gibbs to be getting 25 touches a game in order to be successful. In fact, it's like based, I think, on his less than 200 pounds, we probably don't want him to get 25 touches a game. We prefer it to be 15 touches, but like half of that be receptions, like have the efficient touches.
Yeah.
Yes. And I agree with what Mike just put in here as well. He's got Charbonnet at 3, but he would draft him before wide receiver 2. I don't disagree with that at all.
And if I didn't go Levis, I probably would have gone Charbonnet just to make, not just to make Brian happy, but Vandy, what do you think about Charbonnet as the RB3? Like, or do you agree with Brian and I and have him as the RB2?
Was that up to me? I'm sorry.
Yes. Sorry. My mistake.
One thing I want to say overall about the running back class that I've seen, and I'd have to go back and look at his usage, is like Gibbs and some of the other ones only had like 150 carries or less like last year. It seems like Charbonnet was more used than some of the other running backs. Is that something y'all can look up for in terms of carries at UCLA?
I can, yeah.
Well, the other thing with Gibbs is you got to remember where he came from. He came from Georgia Tech, where he was used in that triple option, and he was not getting the exposure. And as soon as he got to Alabama, he got the exposure and just exploded on the scene, right? So, Kyle, while you're looking that up,
I just looked it up. So he had 203 carries. Actually, yeah. So we should go back to Michigan. As a freshman, he had 149 carries, but then he got hurt. He only played 5 games as a sophomore. So his 2 years at UCLA, 203 carries, 24 catches, and then 195 carries last season with 34 catches. So again, he was getting the more efficient touches as his receiving, his receptions and his receiving yards went up, but his carries went down. And it's almost like what we want ideally, but we're talking still 230 touches a season. So up there, but I think it's also maybe it's only 2 years of that. So maybe not something we're necessarily like worried about mileage with, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge deal. And it's always hard to tell going into the draft, but I think Gibbs is somebody I don't know. My personal preference is I'd go Gibbs over Charbonnet, just because the unknown ceiling seems to be maybe be a little higher.
All right, yes, but I think those will be. It seems like starting to be like pretty consensus. The top 3 running backs going, all of them in the first round of rookie drafts. So
yep. And speaking of, Kyle, you are on the clock here with.
Actually, I think it's
10.
Brian Ford.
I'm sorry, Brian. You are on the clock here with pick 10. Where are we going?
Yeah, so in a lot of mocks that I'm in and the way that I've seen things play out, Levis and QJ are still on the board at this point, and so I think there becomes this tier of like 110 to, I don't know, 203-ish, something like that. That seems pretty flat to me, where I don't think there's much value, and that where I would either trade out or pick a guy and flip them and that sort of thing. But with Levis and QJ gone at this point, I'm going to go with my wide receiver too, and that's Jordan Addison. JSN has, I think, the best floor ceiling combo. QJ certainly has ceiling, and I think Addison's your floor. I think people are dinging him maybe a little too much with the testing numbers and that sort of thing. He's smooth. He's a really good route runner, good ball tracking. His numbers took a dip in 2022, but you have to understand that Lincoln Riley's offense, spreads the ball out a lot, and so it's not going to be a situation where like he was in Pitt, where Pickett was just feeding him because there wasn't much else to throw to besides Jordan Addison. And so I think at this point in the draft, I don't know that there's really anybody else that I would take, even consider at this point, because then you're getting into some guys that I just either don't like at all, like a certain wide receiver that Ryan Searfoss loves, or guys that I don't like at cost, like a certain little small boy running back from Texas A&M, or a guy or guys where I could get a discount version of later. So I mean, if Addison fell to me at 110 in a real rookie draft, like my pants get tight.
All right, so let's move on to pick number 11 here. This is Kyle's pick.
Well, and to answer a question you had earlier, Jay, of why didn't I have JSN originally as the wide receiver 1? It's because I had Addison as the wide receiver 1. So I still have him at 2, but I've kind of come around to appreciate it and looking at some of the numbers. And specifically, I'll shout out Peter Howard on these, the receiving yards per team pass attempt, and looking at like a receiver's best season through their college career. JSN, his best season was 3.26. Jordan Addison, 2.94 receiving yards again per team pass attempt. And I've looked at, I guess it's 18 wide receivers, and JSN is the second highest. So that 3.26 is pretty significant for this class. The third highest is Jalen Hyatt at 3.24. So great transition from Brian, because I'm pretty sure that's the receiver he was dreading hearing next, and you get to hear it right here. So let's get it out of the way. Jalen Hyatt at the 111. Sorry, Brian. I've come around on him too. I didn't initially have him too high in my rankings. I think I actually had him at like wide receiver 8, but then plugged in some additional numbers and hearing some other people. Again, I do trust and respect Ryan quite a lot on wide receivers. So kind of hearing that, and I've become more convinced. It also does seem like he's being mocked a lot in the first round. So
yeah, my concern with him is he seems to be, at least right now, a one trick pony with the route tree. I don't know that I can draft him this high. But that's just me. Brian, you got any? I know you started the hit on this earlier. First of all, let me clarify which Brian here. Vandegrad, anything you want to add to the Jalen Hyatt pick right here?
I'm just thankful that Kyle went ahead and drafted him. He may be the best wide receiver ever, but a Vanderbilt graduate will never pick him. That's about all I got to add to that.
Brian Ford, anything? I know you're over there just cringing right now over this Jalen Hyatt pick.
I mean, I'm not cringing because I mean it's pretty much where he's at as far as ADP goes, and again, I'll trade out or I'll trade Hyatt and flip him to somebody like Searfoss or Kyle. Hyatt's my wide receiver 10. He's another out at cost kind of guy for me. There's just no floor there. There's no physicality. Like you said, one trick pony, schemed to no end. They schemed him to get free release anytime any cornerback got hands on him. A stiff wind could hurt Jalen Hyatt at this point. He's Henry Ruggs, Ted Ginn, Will Fuller, maybe at best. I think
James Cook out of the backfield.
I think it's a lot.
Will Fuller would be pretty good, to be fair. If he was Will Fuller, I think everyone would find it a success. If he was the first name you said, though, you're right. That'd be pretty bad.
I mean, I'm not spending a late first on him, or like I said, maybe I'll like if I'm at 111, I'll trade out to 203, 204, and pick up another wide receiver who I like a lot better,
Well, I would advance. I'm trying to trade out for wide receivers. If I was like forced to draft Jalen Hyatt, I'd try and go. Could I buy Deebo Samuel on the dip right now? Can I go get that tier of receiver? Add another pick to the 111 if I have to. Add a second, get that tier of receiver. That's probably what I'm looking to do more than actually take Jalen Hyatt, but. We're not trading in this mock, so it's your turn, Vandegrad.
Nope. Vandegrad, you are on the clock. It has taken us 41 minutes to get through one round. So, Vandegrad, let's get who is your number 12 right here?
Tajay Spears. Why not?
You bastard. Sorry.
I felt like it was the perfect time to pick him up. So
I wonder who was going to go 201.
Yeah, that's who was going 201.
Sorry, Vandegrad.
Go ahead. Tell us why you
worked out himself.
Why are you taking Tajay Spears? I think this might be the first mock that I've seen him go in the first round. Tell me why you're taking Tajay Spears in the first round at 112 right now.
Well, I mean, first of all, his workouts. So at this point in time, aren't we looking for all upside to begin with? And I look down at the other wide receivers that I could have picked. He looks to be the most upside. The other guys have some floor. So,
yeah, Brian Ford, what do you? I mean, you're excited about this pick as well at the 12 spot, getting Tajay Spears. Thoughts?
I'm a Spears truther, which was like my excitement. I don't think you need to spend the 112 on him, but I did see him go in the late first in a couple mocks, so he's creeping up there. I think he'll settle back down into where his ADP is, which is like 205 to 207, and I'm much more comfortable there. There's some knocks on. He's in a tier of running backs that's like my running backs 4 through 9, and he's 5. And basically that whole tier is like, okay, let's see the draft capital and landing spot. And I happen to think he's on the higher end of that tier. He's super explosive, super agile. Good, underrated receiver. I'm a Spears truther, and I think, obviously, he's gotten helium after the Senior Bowl, then it died back down. I think it's going back up. We'll see what the NFL says. The thing about him to flag for folks who may not be familiar with Spears is he's got at least one ACL tear in his history, and we think a second one as well that's like sort of unconfirmed, but like it's kind of like an open secret that he's got a second one. So there may be NFL teams that just simply have knocked him off their board completely. Like he's a do not draft for them, and so that may affect his his draft capital, but I expect him to go by the end of day 2. And if he goes day 2, it's wheels up.
Apparently, we have all the time in the world. Kyle, at least that's what Kyle's saying. Jeff isn't here to supersede and say we don't. So maybe we could progress, and that's why I guess.
No, we're definitely going to get at
transition.
least through. We're definitely getting through at least 2 of these rounds. So I'm
For
not
sure.
sweating Jeff. Jeff is not my, as Kyle said or as Brian said earlier. Jeff is not my real dad, so
Come on,
he cannot boss me around.
It's the off season. Do you have a show coming on after you?
No. And if we did, they can go a little bit later. It's not my concern. We take precedence this night.
Mike saying, thanks for joining us, Mike. He likes when Gator gets upset. It's usually at Jamie. Now, Jamie asked a question. I wonder if it'll get Gator upset too. What if Hyatt went to the Chiefs?
Well, see, here's the thing, and I saw this and I thought about it, and now I will ask a question on top of this. Doesn't that seem like Sky Moore all over again?
Yeah, McCole Hardman. they have a type. It's not just the
don't
Raiders.
the Chiefs already have those players or had those players, and it didn't work for them right then?
As much as they might be slightly different players. The April ADP on DLF for Sky Moore was 205.
Mm-hmm.
And where'd he wind up going after people got drunk on the landing spot?
Yep.
I am team landing spot matters, but everybody loves the Chiefs as a landing spot for just about everybody. But we've seen that, they have like a cast of characters. They spread the ball around. It's Kelsey and then spread the ball around. You cannot rely on anybody on that team at any of those positions. They'll make an all-star out of Jerick McKinnon. I don't know that that's such a great landing spot for fantasy, but maybe I'm in the minority.
Well, it's a great landing spot for the quarterback, because that's like you want 2 pieces of that offense. You want the quarterback and you want the tight end, right? And it's just more
Mahomes
weapons
will skyrocket
for
in
Mahomes,
rankings,
right? It's just more weapons for Mahomes. They took a seventh round pick and turned him into an RB2 overall of the year. When I say RB2, he's like 14.
I would imagine lower than that, but probably close to that 24.
He was inside the top, inside that RB2 range, right? But that's a 7th round draft pick, and everybody was, getting pissed off that Damian Pierce was a 4th round pick and was so good. Nobody saw Pacheco coming.
Well,
except for goddamn Andy Reid of all people.
Except for Brian Ford, but
Brian Ford. Okay.
But Brian Ford's also selling Pacheco right now as well,
right.
Because everyone else has bought in finally, right? That's the time to sell.
Go.
That's how you play that game. But we're gonna talk about some more games here on Underdog Fantasy, and we got some fancy things like a QR code. I think there's even a little shine or glimmer that comes every so often. Oh, there it is, right there.
There it is.
Super fancy.
I wonder if B League has that on his show.
I don't know that Saturday Night 5 has the shimmer. I think we just have the code.
Maybe this is the Gambit.
Enough, I guess.
This is the Gambit.
It's the Gambit shimmer. Ooh, you said it, and it's like almost like Beetlejuice. It'll show up. But so Underdog. What is Underdog? Well, it's a great website. You can make tons of betting, tons of best ball drafting. Simply scan the QR code, or for our audio listeners, of course, use the promo code GF2, capital G, capital F, the digit 2. Second one on the keyboard, I guess. Third if you're going like on the side pad, because the 0 is technically below the 1 and the 2. But GF2. I say like it says in the hat, but the hat is clearly blocked by the screen on the screen by the QR code. So either way, that entry with the promo code or the QR code will give you a double deposit match upon signing up on Underdog. So up to $100. So if you max out and put the full $100 in after using the promo code or after scanning the QR code, then you will get an additional $100 added to your account. And that's $200 you can use right away. There's tons of great sports events going on. It's the Men's World Championship Curling Tournament. That's happening right now. Just a couple hours away, actually. It's here in Canada. Is
that on Underdog for real?
I don't know. It might be, but it's sports. You might be able to, maybe not. But you'll probably for sure get like NHL and NBA, racing sports, and of course Underdog drafting. I know Jay on Intervention last night, he did an Underdog draft episode. So, and you can transition from that to your pick if you want to, unless someone else has something to say. Sorry.
And the small golf tournament's going on right now too.
Oh yeah, of course. I needed to master all the list of things that were coming, but yes, the Masters.
Ew. Yeah, and so what Brian or what Kyle was just saying there is, as I did have our very own from Going for Two B League on the show last night, and we did do an underdog draft. Get with B League. You can get him over in the Discord. Get with him. He loves doing drafts. I think he's up to like 40, 45 already this year.
Wow.
So jump in there, do that with the B League. Hit him up on the Discord. He loves people to DM him on Discord or Twitter over at the B League Says. Just like Kyle's handle is Sindra Says, the B League Says is a pretty good follow as well. So right here at the 201, I've got a couple guys that I'm really interested in looking at here that I think might make it back, but this guy I don't believe will make it through the next 3 picks for me to get back on the board. And that is my running back 5. Again, another guy that I think can be, with his size at 6 foot 219, 220, can be a true 3-down back. And that is the man from Auburn, Tank Bigsby. So I loved what he has done. Probably should have transferred last year, but he was loyal to the Auburn family, stayed there, didn't have the great year. A couple other players transferred as well, but he was loyal to the program. And I just truly believe this guy is going to be a hell of an NFL running back.
I can dig it. Charbonnet is my running back too, especially before the NFL draft, largely because we're looking at, a safe, well-rounded back.
Mm-hmm.
Tank Bigsby has a chance, low-key, to be a 3-down workhorse and be that safe floor back, which is why he's my RB4 right behind Gibbs. So I can dig this pick for sure. Yeah.
So I just basically took with my first, basically what 1, 2, 3,
first
first 4
picks. Yeah.
I took your top 3 running backs.
Well, no, you went Jackson's pick the Jigba, didn't you?
Right, but I went Bijan Robinson.
Oh, then you went
RB1.
Charbonnet, right? Yeah.
Then I got Charbonnet, which is RB2.
Yeah.
And then Tank, you said, was RB3 for you?
4. RB4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got 3 of your top 4 right off the rip. I like it.
I agree with Mike. I also thought you were taking a different running back, but
anything I could do to take Brian Ford's players, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Brian
he's next.
Ford, you are on the clock.
No one can snipe him here.
Right. Yeah. There's a couple guys here that are going where I'm kind of like at cost. I was hoping you would take one of them, so I wouldn't have to take him and trade him. But I'm not going to take him and trade him. If this was tight end premium,
yes,
I would flirt with Dalton Kincaid.
Oh.
I'm a Kincaid truther.
Yes.
And on top of that, I understand that the strategy with rookie draft tight ends is to take them in the 3rd and 4th round and kind of avoid the early ones. I think we might be getting not as good as Kyle Pitts, but we might be getting something like a Kyle Pitts light when we think about Kincaid's use as a passing game weapon, and rather than just thinking of him as a tight end. But I'm going to take here my wide receiver 3. I think I can get a discount version of this wide receiver later on, who's in a different uniform, different university. But I might as well just go at my board and take my wide receiver 3 here, and go with Josh Downs from North Carolina. He does have some size concerns at 5'9", 171. And people will say like, oh, well, he's going to be confined to the slot. It doesn't quite mean as much in the NFL these days when we think about all the heavily targeted slot receivers, when we think about small receivers doing better the last couple of years, and when we think about, he's going to be off the field in 2 wide receiver sets. Okay, fine. But here's the thing. How much does the team he goes to run 11 personnel, aka 3 wide receivers, right? And how much percentage of their passing plays is coming from those 2 wide receiver sets that he's missing, right? Those are things that you have to take into consideration. So if his route participation is still as high as someone's X or flanker, I'm cool with it. I don't care. Take him off the field in 2 wide receiver sets. I honestly don't care. His ball skills, that's what she said. tracking, speed, route running, plays bigger than his size. Like I just, he's I have him above QJ and Jeff's boy from Boston College.
Say Flowers.
Yeah. Well, I try not to say, players that haven't been drafted yet.
Yes. You said Boston College and it was automatic. So
yeah, I got you. But then the guy I have kind of like right below that guy from Boston College, I'm hoping will be there later, and he's the discount version of Josh Downs.
Yeah, the thing is with what you said a minute ago, where he's just a slot receiver, or that's the perception. Go watch the film. He played on the outside a ton.
I mean, he'll probably be confined to the slot in the NFL because I don't think he's going to win on the outside in the NFL.
But he did it in the ACC. He won on the outside in the ACC.
Well, I guess my contention is I don't think it matters. If he plays his entire career just in the slot, he could still be fantasy productive in today's NFL. Like, what team isn't at some point using 11 personnel, as Brian mentioned, in some fashion? And if he goes to the Rams, who they're using that formation like 90% of the time, and that's no exaggeration. I know some years they've been above 90% with that type of, because they want to disguise everything based on that look, that formation. And there are some teams that run almost everything out of that 11 personnel. So if he goes to one of those offenses, then it doesn't matter. He can play in the slot entirely, and he might get like 70%, maybe close to 75% snap share, because he'll just be on the field a ton.
Yeah.
He's my wide receiver 5. Totally sniped. I was about to take him here. So thanks, Brian. Guess I'm up. I'll go with my RB3 currently. And you see, I think maybe the less of a passing pedigree. He hasn't hit the 20 reception mark in college, so he's probably confined to more of an early down back. What I've seen of him catching the ball, I think he looks pretty good. On tape, he was my RB2, and really it's just, Charbonnet, you put the production side by side over the course of their entire careers. And then also Charbonnet, like really excelling at the combine, has kind of moved him up to the RB2, but I still have Kendre Miller as a top 3 running back. So I'll take the shot here. I know right now he's still recovering from the knee injury, but it seems like he should be good to go for the NFL season. So if he ends up to a team where he could be the lead back, I think he can take it running. And I think outside of Bijan, I don't think there's a better pure runner in this class.
I think a landing spot's going to matter a little bit for him, but I loved what I saw on film from TCU with him. There's been talk about Bijan going to Dallas. I think Kendre is a better fit.
Oh my God, the Tony Pollard managers would just cry because he's a way better runner than Tony Pollard.
That's exactly my point. As I think he's a way better person, a way better player than Tony Pollard is. And
I guess recovering from the knee injury is going to have the
everything.
burst to be a better outside runner than Pollard would probably be the question. But I think between the tackle,
yeah.
Oh.
I was actually
funny
thinking he was going to slip to me. I'm sorry. I was actually thinking that Kendre was going to slip to me here at the 5 pick. So I thought maybe I'd get 2 picks and I would be okay with getting hammering these running backs. But that was a nice little, not going to say snipe job because it's probably right about value. But Thank you for doing that.
It's funny because at first I'm coming back to Mike's comment when you took Tank Bigsby, I was thinking maybe of a different, like you said about the size. I thought, Miller's close to that too. I like Mike was thinking you were taking a different running back, and it was Kendre Miller, and then I kind of flashed, okay, I can't let him fall. So I might have gone with the Boston College receiver here, but instead I'll go with Kendre Miller.
Yeah, Kendre's basically they're the same. They are basically the same size. Kendre's at what 220-ish, right at 220, and I think Tank Bigsby's like at 215, somewhere around there.
Worlds apart in footwork.
Huge, but
I'm not a fan of Tank. I think the footwork's atrocious, especially for as much time as he's been in college. That should have really been worked on, and so I'm super low on Tank Bigsby. He's just tanked in my rankings since I've. Well, really, not tanking.
Hey, see what you did there. Stop it.
That's interesting because, I'm kind of again. I have that tier of 4 to 9. It's a tier, right? So we're talking about the differences between these guys are incremental. But Tank is my 4, and Miller's at the bottom of that tier at 9. Yeah,
I've been very critical of Jahmyr Gibbs' footwork. Tank Bigsby makes Jahmyr Gibbs look like he's got good footwork. That's the scary part for me.
All right, Vandy Grad, you are on the clock here at the 204 spot. Where are you going here?
I think it's probably pretty obvious by now. I'm taking the Boston College receiver, Zay Flowers.
No, smart pick. Like I said, I almost took him, but I was afraid Miller would get sniped, and that would upset me more than if Zay Flowers got sniped.
And I don't really have a lot extra to say. I mean, like I said, he was already kind of P talked about before I spoke up, so we'll go with that.
Well, I do, again, this guy, Zay Flowers, comparable size-wise to the Josh Downs.
Yeah, a bunch of small guys in this class. Really, the last 4 receivers we've taken have all been pretty small.
Yeah, do you? Well, I mean, Hyatt, Hyatt was what? He's 6 foot, right?
Right, he's more thin than he is small. He's almost like a
Right.
Devontae Smith build.
Yeah,
that's true. That's the concern there, more than the height. You're right.
How much does Josh Downs and Zay Flowers? I mean, their game. I haven't watched a ton of film on Zay Flowers yet, but I have watched a good bit of Josh Downs. How much does their game compare? They're both played in the SEC or ACC rather. They're both sizes about the same. I mean, they're like 3 pounds apart, but they're both like 5'10", 5'10 and a half, something like that. So Brian Ford, tell me, what is the difference between you taking Josh Downs 2 picks ago to Zay Flowers? I know you started talking about it, didn't want to elaborate too much, didn't want to say the name, but now the name's out there. What's the biggest difference?
They're closely bunched together in the same tier. Downs is my wide receiver 3 and Flowers is my wide receiver 5, and they're separated by QJ. Flowers is not an early declare. And I don't weight that like too heavily because every prospect has context, but that's part of it. I also think he's much less. He's more of like a. I don't want to say like that. I get Rondell Moore vibes from him, but I think he got a lot more low ADOT targets that he created with afterwards than Josh Downs did. And I just, between the two, I would prefer Downs. They are pretty close together. Flowers, to his credit, does also have winning on the outside in his repertoire. But again, in the NFL at 5'9", 182, about 10 pounds heavier than Downs at the same height, will also probably mostly be a slot guy.
One thing I'll say in terms of a difference, because they're pretty much back-to-back in my wide receiver rankings right now. Wide receiver 5 for Downs, 6 for Flowers. Receiving yards per team pass attempt. It's that's almost opposite end of the spectrum. I was talking about JSN at 3.26 being the second best in the class. Josh Downs kind of blows him away at 3.53 last season. So again, this is not an average over the career. It's a single season best. But that's the best in this class. And like of the 18 players I've looked at, Flowers is 13th with 2.47 receiving.
Yeah,
yards.
I think
that's the biggest difference I could find between the two.
Context matters, and you got to look at who the quarterbacks are as well.
Right. And if you look at Flowers, if you look at their career averages on that statistic, Flowers is only barely above Downs. Downs is 1.93, and I believe, and
it's
Flowers
really just I think Downs' senior season.
Flowers is 2.08. On a team where yes, he had the quarterback play that was less thrilling, but he also was I think a bigger percentage of the offense. Right. So when you're that much of the offense, particularly after AJ Dillon left, and you're still only at 2.08 per team pass attempt, that to me is a little, yeah.
Well, I am back up on the clock here at the 2:05, and news come out today that this guy is probably going to go in the first, latter half of the first round. 25 years old, and I don't know how much that truly matters when it comes to the quarterback position, right? But he's pretty experienced. Virginia Tech down to Tennessee, and as a Gator, no, like Vandy Grad said, we don't like taking Tennessee players, but you cannot deny that Hendon Hooker, if he is a first-round pick in the NFL, at 2:05, has got to be picked. If not before then, right?
How many people on this podcast think he's a better quarterback prospect than Will Levis?
It's absolutely the facts.
And it gets unanimous, right? But the ACL tear, the age, there's a lot of concerns. But yeah, if he gets that first round capital, there really should be no excuse on it.
Yeah, so at 205, I'm going to take Hendon Hooker here. Brian Ford, anything on Hendon Hooker? And then as soon as you get done, actually, let me do this. Vandy Grad, anything on Hendon Hooker?
Honestly, I'm okay with this pick. I would hold my nose while doing it, but he's the last of the available quarterbacks probably that you can get and actually have a chance to be a potential future starter. So I'm okay with it.
Well, Wheeler's kind of thinking the same thing. He thinks Levis is trash and he loves Hooker.
I mean, he's a hooker. I mean, it's and he's a wheeler too. So it's Kevin Hooker Wheeler.
So like if he's a right-handed golfer, he usually hits it left. Like he doesn't slice. He hooks. Because I always slice, like especially with my driver. Like that's going straight right. I go, okay.
Brian Ford, anything on the Hendon Hooker pick, and then of course lead that right into you are on the clock at the 206 here. So anything on Hooker, and then go right on to your pick.
Yeah, if not for age and injury, Hooker could very well be quarterback 3 or 4. For me, he's technically 5 behind Levis only because of expected draft capital. But Levis is a hot potato avoid. Hooker is a let's try to get at value. If Levis goes at 7 to the Raiders, and someone in the early second sneaks up into the late first to take Hooker, and I like the landing spot like Seattle or Tennessee, where he can sit in both those places, I might slide Hooker. So for my pick here at, what is it, 06?
Hang on 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Before you go into your pick, because the way you brought up the draft, I was watching a CBS mock, NFL mock today for the first round.
Uh-huh.
They had Hendon Hooker mocked to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think that's a little high. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah had him mocked at 23 to the Vikings, and so everybody got excited about that. I don't know. We'll see. He's interviewing well. I don't know that he goes that high, but even then, like if he goes 19 to the Bucks and Levis goes 4 or 7 or whatever, then yeah, I might slide him ahead. Yeah.
Well, that's where I was going with that. It's like you said, landing spot matters. When you look at the weapons, like you said, with certain landing spots, that Tampa landing spot seems to have some outside weapons with Godwin, with Evans, all of that going on. I think that's a huge help for a rookie quarterback. But move on to your 106 or 206 rather.
Yeah, and he'd be checking down to Rachaad White, Cade Otton. Yeah. So I'm gonna go slightly off my board here. I'm gonna hope that discount Josh Downs is available later. But I'm gonna get a little spicy here and go with Izzy Abanikanda.
Ah, you bastard! Why are you doing this?
Izzy Abanikanda was the first rookie profile I wrote for going for 2 on February 2nd. And I was high on Izzy, so don't give me the I'm double counting getting a boner over the pro day thing. After his pro day, I only slid him up a couple spots just into and then like sort of into towards the bottom of that next tier. Size, speed, underrated receiver. He's got flaws, there's some footwork and that sort of thing. And people question decision making and the yards per carry is low because he faced a lot of boxes in Pittsburgh. Everybody knew they were handing it to Abanikanda. But one thing to remember about him is that he's 20 years old at draft time. I think he'll be 21 in June.
Breakout age of like 18 and a half or something like that. Too.
So he's got room to grow at the position, whereas a guy that people have similarly ranked and that's Roschon Johnson, who's less experienced at the position than a lot of because he came in as a quarterback in college. He's doing that room to grow at 22. A-Chain's not going to be 22 till October. So something to keep in mind. It's a ceiling thing. It's an upside thing. It's a speculative thing. But when I'm looking at what's on the board and we're not in a tight end premium and I'm looking at, a running back that I have questions about that's ranked similarly. And when I look at, wide receivers that are like, they might not even be day 2. So yeah, give me Izzy.
I love that pick. I love it. I love him there.
Yeah, I think with the Banneker, my simple comment is tape was decent. The production's awful, and the combine the relative athletic score, he's got the highest of any running back that is worth drafting. Because I don't think anyone's actually taking Demetric Prince, as great of a combine as he had. Maybe he does. Who knows? But then I'll look like an idiot for saying that. Now, going back to tape, though, however, this is a running back that I loved on tape. I had him at RB3, and less than stellar combine performance has kind of moved him down to I actually essentially what happened in my rankings from pre-combine to post-combine was I flipped him with Charbonnet from 2 to 6. Like Charbonnet was initially at 6, moved him up to 2, vice versa, and it was like almost the opposite end of the spectrums in terms of relative athletic score. I think his smaller size is a factor on that. I don't think he quite ran as fast as everyone was expecting. And I still think he's a very capable runner, yes, even at his size inside the tackle running. I think he has got I had him as the number one body fluidity score in the class. His ability to contort and avoid tackles, I think, will help him, and it'll be able to produce, but also survive at his height. So as much as right now, I'm not taking my RB4, I'm going to let him fall just because I think he will fall. But I'll take my RB6 currently at Devon Achane.
Okay. All right. I don't hate the pick. I have questions. I think he's going to be, in my opinion, he is going to be a punt returner because of his speed. In the
so
NFL.
He's Nyheim Hines, essentially. You're saying I guess that's not.
If he's Nyheim Hines, I think you'd be happy, But I just don't see him being anything more than that. Brian Ford, anything on that?
He's an out at cost guy, but saying that his cost is like 111 to 203, and if you're getting him now at what is this 07?
Yeah,
it's starting to get a little more reasonable. My tweet the other day was the gap between Gibbs and Achane is much bigger than the gap between Achane and Deuce Vaughn, and this is not a pro Gibbs or a pro Vaughn tweet.
That's right. I remember seeing that. I vehemently disagree because I've got Gibbs and Achane one spot apart in my rankings. I think they're almost essentially the same running back, but Achane has much better footwork. So in theory, he should be better, but I think Gibbs is a better athlete.
Right. And so, when we look at under 190 running backs, I think 6 of the top 10 fantasy seasons were Darren Sproles, right? His special teams is going to be baked into his real life draft capital. Mm-hmm. I agree that he's probably a little underrated as far as a runner goes, but he's got really bad contact balance. And, when you say things like for his size and for college and bending to avoid tackles, I don't know that that's really going to translate to Sunday as well as some people think. But I would like to give Kyle some of my body fluids to see what my score is.
Yes.
Yeah, I've always what do I say for that? That's always the one of my scores. I have no idea what to call it. I've called it pad level in the past. I've called it, I don't know. It's a fluid title, but fluidity is basically what I've stuck with.
With a new name for that. So here we are, 208. Vandy Grad, you are on the clock here at 208.
This worked out perfectly for me. And I was the one that did not want a tight end premium because I felt like the tight ends were a little deep.
Don't you gosh dang do this. Don't you do it now. No, you wanted no tight ends. We should have taken tight ends off the board because you I don't want tight end premium. We can't do tight end premium.
Well, to be fair, Jeff did chime in too. And as much as I know Jay, in our bubble, and I think we saw it in the Speak On It league, right? Where we were talking about change the league, and you suggested tight end premium, and Danny and D had no idea what you were even talking about, right? So this idea, I know in a lot of dynasty spheres, everything's tight end premium now, but that really isn't the mass right now.
No,
it's still PPR
agree.
Is still the conventional scoring, straight PPR,
and that's why I was it made sure it was clear.
To your credit, you relented and let's give as many people. And plus, almost every other mock draft show is doing tight end premium of some sort. So we'll be the different ones, right? We'll have the one with no orange on the screen.
Vandy Grad, I want you to go here and go ahead, break my heart, break Brian Ford's heart right here.
Take Zach Kuntz.
I'm going to take Dalton Kincaid, but the question I've got...
Listen, I've got control over this board. You're not taking Dalton Kincaid. You're getting Tucker Kraft.
At least give him Zach Kuntz.
The question I've got really for those, as everybody can talk, I've been a little bit quieter on the show because I'm not as expert at this as y'all are. So the question of the day for me is, do we finally have a class that may give us 3 or 4 options to be tight end ones heading into Dynasty, or are we just getting overblown over tight ends here?
Well, let's do this. Let you ask the question. Brian Ford, go ahead and answer, and then we'll let Kyle answer.
Brian, you can go ahead if you want. He might be frozen.
Sorry, I was muted too. Fantasy rookie tight ends are usually not worth the draft capital that you spend on them, especially in the first and second round. As you know, they don't really gain value the way that the third and fourth rounders do. But leaving that aside, this tight end class is, I think, going to be special. Not in small part because it reflects the way the NFL is going. While they skew a little older, if you look at some of the ages of the tight end class, they're smaller, they're athletic, they're more of the move tight end or F tight end that people are talking about. I think there's chances for Kincaid, Musgrave to just be pass catching weapons. Laporta very underrated. My boy DW, Darnell Washington. The consensus one coming into this was Mayer. If Kuntz can develop his athleticism into being a football player. Tucker Kraft people like. So it's a really good tight end class.
Kyle.
I think, just what Brian said, the multiple shots, like that's what you're asking is like, can there be 4 or 5 guys that can threaten to be tight end one? Sure, because I think like there's maybe 8 profiles, 9 profiles in this tight end class. Depends on if you like Will Mallory or not, but like at least like 8 solid tight end profiles, and they've got the required athleticism. So it looks like it does seem like a great class. And I think part of it is, especially in non-tight end premium leagues, will force them all back because there's so many shots. Like, okay, don't get Kincaid. That's fine. He's not even my tight end one, so I'm not even upset that Kincaid wins. So,
yeah, just for me, when you're playing a non-tight end premium, I think Kincaid's profile, what he did at Utah, I actually watched his, a couple of games with him. Of course, I watched the one live with him at Florida this year. Impressive as hell at what he can do on the field, the way he manipulates his body going across the middle, shoving defenders, just get the F off of me, and you're talking about, you get a Pac-12 guy coming into the SEC. Florida wasn't that great this year, I get it, but there are still some big bodies going across the middle. And dude, he jumped into my tight end one almost immediately. I didn't like what I saw with Meyer up there in Notre Dame, but I am on the clock here, so I am gonna. I probably would have taken Kincaid at 9, but I probably would have normally, in a non-tight end premium, waited till the 3rd round. I'm gonna go get Roschon Johnson right here. I love what he did his freshman year without Bijan being there. I think he can profile and be a player in the NFL as a 3-down back eventually. It scares me a little bit that he couldn't do it and he got taken out of the lineup or starting lineup because of a true freshman coming in Bijan. But I still love everything that Roschon does on the field. What I see on tape, it is just phenomenal. If he lands in a spot, something like a New York Giants, where he's sitting, maybe if it's only for a year behind Saquon because he's on the tag, dude, I love that landing spot for Roschon Johnson.
He has to play behind Bijan, then behind Saquon. Like, what are we doing to this guy,
right,
man?
Right. And then he's just going to explode onto the scene and then become a Hall of Famer in like 2 years. That's
Well,
my
he's going to have Daniel Jones as quarterback, so I don't know.
and again, that's why he will be the Hall of Famer because there's nobody else on the team.
When
He might even start at quarterback.
That's true. I guess he can play, right? Yeah.
Kyle, you're on the clock next. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to send Brian Ford right here. Or let's do this. Vandy Grad, anything on Roshan Johnson. When he gets done, Brian Ford, go ahead. And then we'll send it to Kyle. He can do anything on Roshan Johnson and then tell us what his 210 will be.
I'm on the clock at 210.
That's what I meant.
He wants Brian Vandegrad to answer first, and then we'll transition to you, I think.
Y'all go ahead and feel free to kick in. I mean, he's that one thing I do like about him is he's wasn't the dominant back at Texas, so he's got limited usage. So that's one thing I like about the running backs that I'm looking at is more limited usage, and you're going to have that with him. So I like that.
Kyle, go ahead real quick
I guess so standouts, great footwork, second best contact balance on tape. Bijan was third, but Chris Rodriguez the only guy that was higher in terms of strictly contact balance. So it seems like he's a very powerful runner. Got the 20 reception threshold as well. So I think on tape he was my RB4. Yeah, RB4. So followed a little bit in the rankings when he had production in, and the combine not quite as impressive as maybe some of the top guys, but still fairly good. Better than A-Chain, I gotta say, in terms of relative athletic score. So,
right on. Brian Ford, anything on Roshan Johnson?
And said it's his RB5, but yeah.
So I have that tier of 4 to 9, and then Roshan is at the top of the next tier at 10. I find him very meh and underwhelming. He's got good size, and he is what he is, and I mean, if he goes somewhere where it seems like they're looking to give him more touches than I expect, he might move up my rankings. But for right now, Roshan, I think at 209 you're starting to, that's fine to pick him there. So for me, there's a couple running backs on the board that are fallers, and one of them I don't think should be falling this much. I think the hate on him is getting a little too out of control. But rather than take either of those guys, I'm going to take the guy I talked about earlier, and that is the discount Josh Downs, and that's Marvin Mims. I can get basically 75% of the player that Josh Downs is, almost a whole round later. He's my wide receiver 6. I like a lot of the things that he does. And I think he's been underrated. I think he's starting to rise a little bit since the combine. I've seen him go in the early second in a few mocks. I've seen him blast to the mid third in a few mocks. I think this is a swing I'm willing to take at 210.
Yeah, I think size again. We're talking about these last 3 wide receivers that we've picked and taken between Josh Downs, Zay Flowers, and Marvin Mims. They're all that 5'9" to 5'11", they're all that 180 to 190, weight. So they seem to be pretty much the same player. What's didn't he have, and I'm not 100%, I'm going to ask this question real quick. Didn't he have Jalen Hurts his freshman year?
I don't have the best memory for those kinds of things. I
don't know anyone's schools.
I don't think that
Jalen Hurts was at Alabama, transferred to Oklahoma for his senior
story. I know that. I was just
Mims is an early declare. So he only played 3 years. So Hurts has had what?
That would have been.
This was Hurts' third year, so he's probably gone through 3 seasons. If he was there 3 seasons, he would have gone the year after Hurts left, right? Because Hurts has gone through 3 full seasons now.
Right. So
So he had I think what's his face? He had
Spencer Rattler.
And then Caleb Williams, and then Caleb Williams transferred and he had Dylan Gabriel. And after Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams left, he actually arguably improved. I love the speed. I mean, everybody's route running could be a little more crisp, but he's got speed. He's got really good physicality for his size. He's a guy that can win deep, not just low ADOT slot guy. Excuse me. I just love a whole lot about Mims. 2.66 receiving yards per team pass attempt in that junior year, with Dylan friggin' Gabriel throwing the ball. He hits the early breakout. He hits the college dominator of 20% in year 1 or 2. He hits the career yards per team pass attempt of over 2. You like to see over 2.5 as like elite, but he hits the over 2 mark. His best season EPA per play, you like to see greater than 1. He was 1.56. Like he's really good. He was a highly decorated high school football player in the state of Texas, which is like, to be highly decorated in Texas, you gotta be pretty good. So I heard they like football down in Texas. So
it's a thing. It's a thing. It's a thing. All right, guys. So we're coming up to that hour and a half, which we're pressing time. So we got 2 picks left to get through these first 2 rounds. So Kyle, let's do this. Let's let you pick. Go ahead and talk about your pick for a minute or 2, and then Vandy, Brian and I will stay back in the background for just a quick second. We'll recap the whole thing at the end. But as soon as Kyle gets done, picks, Vandy Grad, I want you to rebuttal his pick and then pick yours at the 212. So go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah. What direction I want to go to? There's maybe like 3 players here, one at each position that I could take. Man, the running back guy in me would really want to go with my RB4. It's still too early for him. So I'll move down the list to go with my RB7. Got to get the Canadian in there, Chase Brown.
Time out. We're not going to take your RB4. We're going to go to your RB.
Because it just seems like he's not going to get the draft capital, at least not expected to justify him as a second round pick. As much as I might like him, I also understand, like, if I want it, like if we were going to do this to the 3rd round, I'd probably get him at the 307, 8, or at least probably my next pick. If the guys I otherwise would want to take, like then my next receiver was gone, I'd probably go with that running back then. But for now, I'm going to go with Chase Brown. He's my RB7 currently. I had a fantastic combine, and I think just kind of raising his stock up to me to be, I thought that the top 6 was pretty clear in terms of like, it's the same guys pre to post combine. The order might have changed, but then like that, it almost seemed like that was where a tier break existed. And then like, who's that next guy at 7? Like maybe Roshan. I do like him. Spears as well, but Chase Brown currently my RB7. So
yeah. I'm sorry.
I mean, is a war crime? I've seen him go a lot in mocks in the second round. Have you not seen that at all, Brian?
All right. So.
Oh yeah, right. It's supposed to be Vandy Grad's rebuttal. Never mind.
For context, real quick, Brian Ford just threw in our private chat. Chase Brown in the 2nd round is a war crime. That's how it came out. So all right, Vandy Grad, rebuttal this and tell Kyle why the hell this is a war crime. First of all,
so I guess I should have gone with the receiver then. Never mind.
I honestly think that the other Brian that said war crime would be a better rebuttal than myself. How about that?
All right, Brian Ford, tell us why this is a war crime. Please do this. Jamie's saying we needed to have a 2-hour show. We might have a 2-hour show.
Listen, Chase Brown, he's athletic. He's all right. He's a 5th-year player that got ragdolled in pass pro at the Senior Bowl and is unimpressive with the ball in his hands, and a lot of times has this weird thing of like shying away from contact. He's my RB13. I mean, I've seen him go in the early 3rd in mocks and mocked that in my inside internally mocked.
It's funny because honestly, I'm looking at my film. He was my RB12 on tape, right behind, one spot behind Gibbs. So
stop it now.
Only Chase Brown is actually the best footwork in the class. I rated him as. So to me, footwork is probably the most important trait, and I think he's fantastic at it. And the speed and athleticism is enough there to push him up to RB7.
I mean, yeah, it's a late 2nd. I mean, like whatever, but. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's just so many players I take besides Chase Brown at this point.
Well, Vandergrad, you're up. Maybe you take one of those players that Brian would rather have.
This is about as close to Canada as I'm going to get. This guy comes out of Syracuse, New York, and I'll take Sean Tucker.
See, I think Chase Brown's way better than Sean Tucker, and it's not even close. But yeah. See, to me, Sean Tucker's like Tank Bigsby, so I'm actually who do I have ranked higher?
Tank Bigsby is a dominant player.
Sure, and I mean, you look at the scrimmage yards per season, so was Sean Tucker, right? Like,
Right.
really, honestly, I think Tucker's tape is worse, but every other stat right now is saying he's better than Bigsby.
Vandy
Better
Grant,
scrimmage yards per season, better single season best catch. We don't have Tucker's RAS score, at least I don't have it yet. So,
Vandy, tell us why we're taking, or why we should be taking Sean Tucker at the 212.
One reason I'm really kind of intrigued by Sean Tucker is he may actually play on the functional offense for once. The quarterback at Syracuse flat out sucked. Sorry. I hope he's not listening to our show, which I'm sure he's not. But for him to be on a decent offense for once, Tucker is very not dynamic running back that I think will only improve on the good offense. That's just for me.
I guess if the Syracuse quarterback's watching, we'll probably lose a like or something.
Yeah. We'll get one thumbs down. Hopefully he's not watching. All right, fellas. So here's what I'd like to do real quick. I want to throw this around the horn and go. Let's go with Vandy Grad first. Best pick of the first, second round. And why?
But oh god, best pick with anybody. Hendon Hooker, because he's got the most value at his position, and especially in the Superflex league, where I'm in a 14-teamer. And I'm just desperate for quarterback. I think Hendon Hooker in the second round would be a good value pick to me.
Brian Ford, what is the worst pick of this 2-round draft?
Which of my picks is the worst one?
And then tell me why it is Sean Tucker.
No, here's the thing, right? Like, I'm not a big Tucker guy. I bust Jesse's chops about Tucker all the time and about how he's fallen in NFL draft boards and things like that. But he's my wide receiver. He's my running back 6 in that tier of 4 to 9. There's stuff to. I have well above Chase Brown, Devin A-Chain. So, but worst pick, Chase Brown in the second round.
Worse than the Levis. I thought for sure you'd go on the Levis pick. But.
Well, yeah. I mean, but everybody hates Levis. But the thing about Chase Brown in the second round is not just like in a vacuum, he shouldn't get picked in the second round. He's not that good, as according to my rankings. You don't have to spend the 211 to get Chase Brown. And even if he does go 211 and you're sitting there at the 3-4 and you end up with, I don't know, Eric Gray or, Dwayne McBride or you're not losing much from drafting Chase Brown.
3 catches in college. No, thank you.
But
I'm
the thing about
it avoids me getting Dwayne McBride.
The thing
I
about
take Dwayne McBride. To be fair, there's other running backs to take ahead of
the thing about Dwayne McBride, and people say, okay, fine, he only had a few catches in college, and sure, it's easy to knock that when we're playing PPR. But guys who have singular things they can do really well, where an NFL team can envision where to plug them in, can get playing time and opportunities sooner than a guy who's well-rounded. If you even call Chase Brown well-rounded. For what it's worth, I have Chase Brown at one spot ahead of Dwayne McBride, but I don't think I'm losing much by sacrificing Chase Brown to get Eric Gray or Dwayne McBride or anything like that. At this point, NFL draft will tell us a lot.
Well, here's the thing. My best film score for Dwayne McBride is his contact balance, and it's the same score as, it's probably why I have him as my RB4, but he's the same contact balance score as Evan Hull. So the one thing he can do good, he does as good as like some of these really small satellite backs. So I actually think Dwayne McBride isn't even worth a draft pick. He's worse than Bigsby and Tucker for me. Like, he's one of the guys I'm just burying in my rankings. Like, he is a do not draft at all.
I mean, he's my running back 14, so it's not like I'm like loving the guy, but yeah.
I'll take Deuce Vaughn well over Dwayne McBride 100 times out of 100. I am not a Deuce Vaughn fan.
I'll drive Deuce Vaughn to your house if I can give you him and get Dwayne McBride.
I'll be honest, Deuce Vaughn's tape is worse than McBride, but everything else about McBride is bad. I don't want to take a shot at either. I'd much rather have Chase Brown and Evan Hull. Thank you very much. I'll take those guys.
All right, fellas.
The running back debate continues.
That was a great draft. Listen, Brian Ford, get in the Discord, get in the Going for Two Discord. Go hit Brian Ford up. He loves talking these running backs, whether it's in Discord, whether it's via text message.
Let's not have people text me.
Well, no, hang on, because let me finish. If you get at him enough in Discord, he might just say "F it" and give you his personal phone number where you can. No, he's probably not going to do that.
Or he'd say "F it" and come on the Dynasty Saturday Night 5 so I can yell at you on the podcast.
That's where I was going next.
To be honest.
And
so if you want to
Brian
get on the
Ford
podcast,
will
perfect way.
definitely have you on the Saturday Night 5. He loves people on the show with him on
maybe
Saturday
even someone
night.
This Saturday if you're watching.
Well, I mean, hey, we're not going to be here the next 2 weeks. We have the NFL draft coming up. The Going for Two will have live shows each day during the NFL draft. The Gambit was chosen for the Saturday show, so we'll go live at noon, day 3. We'll be able to recap what's happened in round 1, 2, and 3, and of course what's going on in day 3. Give you our thoughts, what's happening live that day. Brian, dude, awesome, awesome, great to have you on here again. Tell the good people where they can find you. What do you got going on?
Yeah, so at @FFJunkie_ on Twitter. In the Going for Two umbrella, I do articles and rankings on the website. Mostly articles are in the off season. I did a lot of rookie profiles on the guys we talked about tonight. You can also catch me on Saturday nights at 7:30 Eastern, the Dynasty Saturday Night 5 on this very YouTube channel with my co-host Josh Walker. We do sort of lists of 5 as a fun way to talk about Dynasty. And also, I do an audio-only podcast with my friend Jesse. It's called Dynasty Fever, and episodes drop on Thursdays. You can follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Fever Pod. This week's upcoming guest for April 12th to 13th is going to be none other than Brandon Lejeune, who loves talking about running backs on tape. And I love having him on this time of year because it's like I'm so excited about these. And Lejeune's like the Grim Reaper. He'll throw cold water on everybody, and I love it. Yeah.
He is so good. Like, if you don't know who Jesse is or who Brandon Lejeune is, go check him out because he puts out a ton of content on these rookies, deep dives them all. Brian, Vandegrad, what do you got going on over the next 2 weeks before we go live on day 3? And where can anybody find you on the socials?
You can always find me at Vandegrad92. In terms of stuff going on, I really don't have a lot. I'm kind of gearing up for that draft show, and I'm really thankful that Brian and Kyle and you could all come on. And I didn't sink the show like the Titanic because even though I'm into the draft, not nearly as much as y'all are. Very impressive stuff.
You still know your stuff, though.
Yeah, you do. I don't think. Listen, Brian Ford did not say you had a bad pick. That's always a win.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like when we talk about Zay Flowers was getting passes from Phil Jerkovic or whatever. It's like let's be. I mean, Kyle was in the mix here, so it's gonna make Vandegrad look good. It's gonna make anybody look good with those.
We had an easy target, right? We had an easy target.
Yeah, we did.
Why are we? Yeah,
aim for the prism on the fish shirt.
That's absolutely right.
Fish.
Speaking of Scott Fish. If you are not in Scott Fishbowl, which none of us know if we are right at this point, but if you haven't registered, please get over to the website, scottfishbowl.com. Go ahead and register. Even though Scott hasn't updated the graphics, go ahead and update or go ahead and put your information in for the Scott Fishbowl for Scott Fish 13 coming up this summer. Kyle, the floor is yours. What do you got going on? Where can they find you?
Well, a couple of two, in fact, going for 2 live shows. Of course, the Dynasty Gambit here will be back on April 20th. What a day. That'll be the week before the draft. So we'll talk more rookies then. No. Imagine that. Talking rookies in the middle of April. I'll also have an episode of press coverage that week. It'll be April 17th. And guess what? Ryan McDowell from Dynasty League Football, talking rookies, of course, in the middle of April. It was strategically planned that way, but yes, what a crazy coincidence. Also, on the Full Press Fantasy Pod, guess what? We're talking more rookies. We've done quarterbacks, wide receivers, and if you loved the running back processing talk that I did, it's my favorite position to watch. So I'm certainly looking forward to this next episode next week on the Full Press Fantasy Pod, where I'm diving into all these running backs. I'll tell you exactly why I love and hate so many of them. So it'll be great. Can't wait.
Are you going to pull up this draft and explain? I'm going
to pull up my spreadsheet and look at all my film rankings and then like the production. And yeah, it's I need those RES scores. So let's go get those final pro days in. I want that. I want Real Athletic score updated.
Absolutely, guys. I had a great time with this draft. I hope you did as well. I hope the viewers and the listeners got some actionable information from the mock. I know we only did 2 rounds. We set it up for 4. We only got through 2, but we spent an hour and 40 minutes doing it. We gave out a lot of information. Like I said at the start of the show, you can find me over on Twitter at FantasyJ77. You can find me here every Thursday, every other Thursday, right here on the Gambit. Every Wednesday, 8 o'clock on the Fantasy Intervention. With all of that said, for Brian, for Kyle, and for Brian, I am Jay. Thank you for for joining us and letting us intervene
in your Gambit life.
And